am. So.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Unlock the Science of Beauty. This is episode 5. I cannot believe we are at episode 5. And this episode is powered by the good folks over at My Ivana. My name is Sakeya Donaldson, and I am the host of Unlock. And today I have an amazing guest, Miss Akuba Torvikey. How are you, Akuba?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. It's so good seeing you twice in a very short period of time.
You're doing
I
really well.
bumped into Akuba this Sunday at the Beauty Exchange event in Atlanta, Georgia, hosted by R&R Skincare. It was an amazing, wonderful event. So I am so excited to have you here, Akuba. So a little bit about you before we jump into this very meaningful and impactful conversation. So Akuba is a seasoned product development executive with a proven track record of bringing over 200 products to market across all sectors like hair care, skincare, and wellness. She's led product and development for African Pride. Ooh, honey. Baby, I got some stories about African Pride, honey.
Okay.
And Pattern Beauty by Tracy Ellis Ross, to name a few. She specializes in innovation, testing, and consumer insights. Akuba sits at the intersection of beauty, culture, and science. Girl, that's like the spaghetti junction of beauty, honey. Leveraging her expertise to create inclusive, efficacious products that center the needs of historically underserved consumers. So please, guys, help me welcome Miss Akuba.
Thanks everyone for
Hey,
joining.
friend.
Hey.
How
Ooh.
are you? So good to have you here with us. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Akuba, and how you found yourself in this field as a product developer. Because I know I've heard your story, and then I'm like, dang, how you got from there to here? So tell our audience a little bit about your story.
Absolutely. So my name is Akuba Torvikey, and I am based out of Atlanta, Georgia. So my pathway to product development is not linear, and it actually mirrors the stories I've heard of other product developers. Everyone I know found their way into it versus knowing that that's something they wanted to do at the onset. So my undergrad, I'm graduate of University of Georgia. Go Bulldogs.
Go Dogs.
And at first I thought I was going down a different path with interviewing with the CIA, the FBI. I didn't know if I wanted to go into politics or diplomacy, etc. But I started the process of interviewing with the CIA. It was intense. It was too much, and I was just like, this isn't for me. But I didn't know what was for me at the time, in my 20s, and not quite sure what was going on. We were headed into a recession, so on and so forth. So fast forward, I decided to go into consulting, in IT consulting. And consultants have to be jacks of all trades. You have to know where you are, no matter where you're dropped into the process or what's going on. You have to be able to quickly adapt. And that is actually the tool set that I use to navigate my way into product development or in the hair care industry. I grew tired of consulting, and I was able to apply what I had learned in IT consulting as far as process and apply that to just a different industry, and
Yeah.
it was a fairly smooth transition.
Yeah. Yeah. When you told me about Quantico, I was like, girl, you was gonna be you was gonna be on Criminal Minds, girl. How you ended up over here with
Temporary insanity. Temporary insanity.
yes, yes, yes. So I must admit, Akuba, when I started this series back in January, we first got acquainted at an event that we both were working on at Georgia Tech. We were on a panel, and once we connected and I discovered you, I was like, you know what? I gotta get her on Unlock, but I had to be strategic, right? Because as everyone know, we are getting ready to embark on our HBCU Science of Beauty tour, which I'm so excited about. It's kicking off June 16th through the 20th at Spelman College in Atlanta. And the focus of that program is going to be hair care. And so this is actually our last unlock before we kick off the tour. So I was very strategic about where I scheduled you because I was like going into, this camp about hair. I just wanted to bring you on, for what you're doing in your works now, what you've done in the past, and then also, what you're going to do. So I'm super excited about that. And Akuba's actually going to be one of our guest speakers during the camp at Spelman. So we are gracious for that. So let's hop into this conversation about, what you do in your role as a product developer and what the future holds for you. So you have developed over 200 products across hair care, skincare. Well, that is crazy. Okay, let's start there. That is crazy. What's your approach to creating a product that resonates deeply with consumers and stands the test of time?
Sure. That's a great question. That's the foundation of what any product developer has to figure out. So my approach, I would say, is more so rooted in listening, whether it's to the consumer or listening to the market or to the moment, what's going on in current events. And I start by identifying unmet needs or even unspoken desires through observation, and then build from there. So with those inputs, you're building from a foundation of relevance. So relevance, rather. So how well this product meets a need. You're building from the point of view of claim. So how effective is this product at meeting a need? And then intentional formulation. So how safely and efficiently does this product or formula deliver this need? And so I like to
Go ahead. Sorry.
the truth is, oh, no worries. So um for a product to stand the test of time, like African Pride's Moisture Miracle line, it has to solve a real problem. It has to feel good to use, and it has to hold emotional or cultural significance. And you do all of this by staying really close to the consumer throughout the process. So, not just during research, but through ongoing testing, feedback loops, casual conversation throughout your everyday life. So, that is how I like to create products that resonate with consumers.
And you said something that kind of triggered something, right? So beauty products, like you said, they invoke an emotion, right? Especially with Black women. Like we are so tied to our products. And like you said, cultural significance, like African Pride, the brand that you worked with before. Like I have visual memories. I'm fourth generation in the beauty industry in my family. But the other three generations were more service based, like they were cosmetologists. My family owned, a hair salon, things like that. And I always remember like African Pride, Miracle. Like I remember it as a kid, getting my hair straight and getting my hair curled. And so those type of products are legacy products. Like they're passed down from the mom used to use it. Now the daughter is using it on the granddaughter's hair, And so that's really important as far as, like you said, creating a legacy brand and really understanding the consumer and seeing how a product not only works, right, does what it says it's going to do, but it's able to be passed down, from generation to generation. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Part.
So that leads us to our next question. From legacy brands to fast moving startups, how do you adapt your innovation strategy depending on the scale and resources of a company?
Okay. Um, some really good questions. So, I believe it's all about being resource aware and outcome driven. So at companies of varying sizes and age, you're just going to have a different mix of resources available to you. So at legacy brands like African Pride, you may find yourself focusing on systems thinking and alignment, building a business case, moving through layers of approval, and innovating within existing constraints like machinery that your company may have if you do in-house manufacturing. But with younger companies like Pattern, it can be more so about agility, doing more with less, building quickly, iterating often, staying close to the consumer because you can. That's one of the, I would say, like the secret weapon of smaller brands is just being agile to consumer needs. And so in both cases, I like to remain grounded in the insights and the outcomes, but then also tailor the process and the pace to match the company's DNA itself.
I like that. I like that. Now, with new startups as opposed to legacy brands, you said something very important, right? Like you tailor it to whatever the brand's identity is and where they are in their process. So the systems are kind of the same, it's just the way that you kind of implement them will be different depending on the size and resources available in that brand. So it's not a one size fits all type
Correct.
thing.
Correct. And that's where the
Yeah,
consulting hat comes on, right?
yeah,
You scale, the process is the same. You scale
the
it up or
same.
you
Yes.
scale it back depending on the
Yeah.
size of your company and the maturity of the brand as well.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice. With your platform BeautyWise and the Breed Lover Accelerator. So we didn't get a chance to talk about that. So tell us a little bit about BeautyWise and the Breedlove Accelerator before we get into our next question.
Sure. So BeautyWise, it was inspired by the, I would say like the invisibility I observed in the um, in the space, right? So invisibility of African Americans and other people of color, so on and so forth. And then that's one layer. And then the second layer is when you work for a particular brand. I noticed that we tend to um, operate in silos. And so I wanted to create a space for Black beauty product development professionals who were working at their respective companies, but not focused on building community. So BeautyWise, it lives on LinkedIn, and we have over 80 members right now, and it's helped professional and aspiring product developers build their networks. It's helped them find mentorship and new opportunities. So really, it's been influential in that space. I would like to add though, as we are all supporting each other, I love what I've been able to do at BeautyWise, but there's a new organization on the scene, Black Women in Cosmetic Chemistry. So I just wanted to shout them out. Monalay, Cassandra, Cindy J, and all the team there, making some
Shout
things
out to
happen.
the girlies.
Yeah, to the girls, to the chemist girls. Um,
Nice.
so so that was the inspiration behind BeautyWise. Um,
Mhm.
when it comes to Breedlove Accelerator, so first of all, it's important to know that Breedlove is actually named after Madam C.J. Walker. Her born name is was Sarah Breedlove, and so that's where the name was inspired from. Because obviously, she's one of the more well-known product developers, and she's a North Star for me professionally. So I launched Breedlove Accelerator for beauty and Black-owned beauty and wellness companies in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. So I was able to pull resources and subject matter expertise that small businesses don't normally have access to, and put them in the same room, though virtually, because it was the pandemic. Put them in the same room so that there was an exchange of ideas and information, and getting the companies from point A to point B, whether that's scaling or just being more efficient, or even understanding the product development process. So that's Breedlove Accelerator in a nutshell. So for both of those initiatives, the impact for me, and I hope for others, has been both professional and personal. I feel like we're overall, just across everything that I see happening right now, I really feel like product development professionals, on no matter where you fall on the spectrum, we're building like relevant influence in a space that, as Black people, we have long influenced but rarely led. So we're
Correct.
shining light on alternative career opportunities, and most important, I know you mentioned you come from 4 generations of beauty, but mostly in service. The most important aspect for me is that we're adding new layers to what it means to be a beauty
To be in the
professional.
beauty space. Yes, yes. And I love that because my that's my like claim to fame, I would say, right? Like I don't come from a chemistry background. I don't necessarily come from a beauty background, but I found the niche within all of these
Mhm.
spaces. And like you said, that's kind of the foundation of the science of beauty. Like our goal is to introduce these girls into as many STEM, cosmetic, chemistry spaces as possible, because you said, like
Mhm.
you said, so many layers, there's so many entry points, there's so many things that they can do in this space. And if you don't know, you just don't know,
Yeah.
like when you started out your conversation, you said your path wasn't linear. I don't think anybody's path in this space is linear, because
Right.
going from chronicle to quality control is crazy.
I like that. Put that on a t-shirt.
Oh, that is crazy. You know what I mean? I was a fashion stylist for 20 years, and now
Mhm.
I'm in education, because I was reluctant to say that because people like, so you're in education. I'm like, no, I just have a program, but that's the beauty, right,
Yeah.
of these kind of communities that we're building, to where we can all come together from different areas, different lanes, different aspects, with one common goal, right? For us to
Yeah.
be seen and heard in these spaces where we are so impactful and so influential. But like you said, we don't land there, right? So,
Yeah.
shout out to the girlies you said it's the
Black women in
chemistry,
co- Black women in cosmetic chemistry.
Black women in cosmetic chemistry. Shout out to them. Shout out to you for the platforms that you're building. Shout out to Candace and my Ivana and all the things that she's doing in the tech and beauty space. And then shout out to me, because we just out
Absolutely.
here putting points on the board, honey.
Well, and that's why I love what you're doing, Sakeya, because I'm really passionate about opening the door, like waving the flag. Hey, you might not have been great at chemistry, or statistics may not be your thing, but hey, there is a space for you in STEAM, in STEM, and in beauty. If you like, you can marry all those things and love what you do.
Yeah.
And there are other avenues into STEAM work, and that's why I really love what you're doing, and I'm excited to participate at the camp.
Thank you, girl. Thank you, girl. So getting back to our question. Um, with your platforms, BeautyWise and Breedlove Accelerators, you just shine some light on. You've created space for Black product developers and founders, which I think is paramount. At this day and time, we should definitely be collaborating. We should be sharing resources, because that's just what we're forced to do in this climate. So,
Absolutely.
what inspired you to take this mission, and what impact have you seen so far?
um Meaning, what inspired me to
Start the
career
platforms,
wise.
BeautyWise and Bread. Yes.
Sure. So BeautyWise was, as I mentioned before, it was what I observed, going to industry events, going to your Cosmoprophs, or what's coming up next is
Suppliers Week, Suppliers
Suppliers
Day.
Day in New York
Yeah,
and things of that
yeah.
nature. we're attending the events, we're doing the things, we're getting and learning, but we're not building community. And that to me was the missing piece of this all, because we're out there. We just what I existed to do was just draw a circle around us and to say, hey, this is a space whenever you need it, to come in, tap someone on the shoulder, student, or when you're ready to turn the page, VP or director. So that's was the inspiration behind BeautyWise. For the Breedlove Accelerator. We were all just quickly and significantly impacted by the pandemic.
Pandemic,
Um,
yeah.
their resources were at an all-time low, from human resources to ingredients to packaging. There was this shift to hand sanitizer. Companies were throwing hand sanitizer in everything, right? And so, how do
Like, I
you
thought y'all made lawnmowers. How y'all making
like,
hand
not
sanitizer?
anymore? For the foreseeable future, we make
We're making PPE,
right.
PPE and hand sanitizer.
Well, or rubbing alcohol with a few squirts of dye. So yes, there was just this shortage of resources, and where do these businesses turn? People were losing their jobs, and had ideas, and it was a time that was a though it was a time of lack, change, and loss. It was also a time of creativity being spurned as well. And so yeah, I was able just to connect the dots with monetary resources and subject matter experts to bring them all together. I've done a couple cohorts, and then now, just in the background, what I do is one-on-one mentoring through Breedlove, and working to spin things back up again, full-fledged, real soon.
Yeah. And I can attest to that. Because when we were at the event Sunday at the Beauty Exchange, you was like, Sakeya, come here. I need you to meet. This is so and so and so. This is Sakeya. She has this Sakeya, come here.
Yeah.
And I love that, because I'm the same way, right? Because like you said, we're at the things, we're doing the things, we're going to the events, and we're passing out the cards, we're getting the cards, but there's no community for us. Because I feel, just and I'm new into this whole cosmetic chemistry kind of STEM space, but I feel like the community is big enough and self-sufficient enough that if we really tap into and lean on each other, we can really make some headway in this space.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about any type of opportunities to connect with other like-minded people, because you just don't know. You don't know who you know. And I always tell people, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And it's like, how do they know you? Why do they know you? Do they know you as a person that executes? Do they know you as a person that brings things together and has ideals and things like that? And when people see you really doing the work, one thing I've learned, like, people will open up the door for you if they can, and if they see you doing the work, because people do business with people that they like, know, and trust. That's just the reality of it. And so I always encourage people, like, hey, you don't have to, people always want to network up, right? That's the thing. Like, let me get in the room with this person. I'm a proponent of networking laterally, because that's how I really got my start as a fashion stylist. When I was in college at Clark Atlanta, I was working at a recording studio. And so, it's interns, right? Producer interns, videographer interns, engineer interns, all these people, and we're all here. We in the rat race. We trying to, figure it out. And then boom, the producer that you used to work in the studio with, that just used to live in the studio, is now producing for T.I.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
then now T.I. is looking for a stylist. And it's like, oh, remember the girl that used to work at the studio with us, Sakeya? She's a stylist. Let's call her. Like, that's really how I got my start. And so I always, even when I'm talking to the girls in my program, like, don't just come in here and try to get the information from me. You're surrounded about around 30 to 40 other young ladies who have the
Yeah.
same interest as you. You know, they live in different cities, different parts of the country. You never know who that person is going to go off and become, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
So network laterally. You know, it's good to try to talk to me and the other presenters about internships and things like that, but build your network laterally and then grow with the people, you know, that you kind of came in with. So like I'm big
Yeah.
on community. That was one reason why I started this Unlock series, because I wanted to showcase women like you that were in these spaces that, you know, aren't front facing to the public, you know,
Mhm.
and they may not know that you know exist, but you're the person that's really formulating the products that they use every day, right? And so they need to be able to put a face with the position. So that's a real reason why I started doing this. I can't see. Do we have any questions in the chat? If you guys have any questions for Akuba or for myself, definitely leave them in the chat, and we'll get to those throughout the program or after. Do we have any, Akuba? If
I
not, I'll
can't see any. No, I don't see
okay.
any questions. Just a few
Okay.
comments.
So yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions, definitely you can start leaving them in the chat and we'll get to them. So we'll continue. In your experience, how has the beauty industry evolved in this inclusion of Black voices, especially behind the scenes in product development and innovation? And where do you still think that there's work that can be done?
Okay. Um, so there's definitely more visibility now, but inclusion, I would say, is still inconsistent. We've seen an increase in Black founded brands, obviously, and we've seen steps towards diversifying the executive teams. However, there are still some disparities. There's the first would I would say is revenue disparity. So the Black brands that are on shelf, they only make up a small portion of the beauty industry's entire revenue. I
Mhm.
believe I recall reading that Black owned or Black founded brands represent only about 2.5% of the total revenue of the beauty space, and that is influenced primarily by availability. So Black owned brands are underrepresented on store shelves, only making up about 4 to 7% of the brands that are carried in retail stores. And then I would say, lastly, just specifically around product development or just more so in that lane, there's still workforce underrepresentation. Only like 4 to 5% of employees in the U.S. beauty industry are Black. So the pipeline of Black chemists, marketers, product developers is still so very narrow. So a lot of space and room to grow. That's why I love what you're doing. I love what's happening at Spelman and a host of other organizations as well, to again shine a spotlight on these opportunities, on these disparities, and just usher in the next generation of creators and makers
Yeah.
in the beauty space.
Okay. Girl, I got a lot to say about that. So
What you got?
that was one of the things, like when I really started doing like a deep dive into this space before I decided to really just go all in on the science of beauty. And I saw, you know, the revenue that is spent by African American women annually. We talking $7 to $9 billion annually
Mhm.
that Black women spend in this space, but the representation at the formulation stage is very minute, right? That's why you have these brands that are creating these products that really don't work for us, because you don't have us in the lab saying, you know,
Right.
Black women aren't really Black. right? You do understand they have undertones and things like that. So the
Right.
makeup doesn't have to be black, right? You do understand that, right? And so that's one reason why I think black um, women-owned brands are thriving now, because they're really making products that they don't have or that they need, right? And
Yeah.
so that's a huge thing in itself. And that's really what I pride the science of beauty on, because it's about, like you said, creating that next wave of disruptors in the beauty space, because that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna shake the table, and they're gonna like destroy the status quo of what new brands have to do to stay competitive, in this space. And then the shelf representation is insane. That's why organizations like the 15% pledge is
Mhm.
super important, right? Because they're really holding these retailers accountable, and like, hey, you say you with us, show me. Like, show me. Are you familiar with the 15% pledge?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
um, I I agree wholeheartedly. I also believe and see that there's a disparity between the brands we see on shelf versus all the brands that actually exist, and how do we get the consumer to the brands and brand awareness. And in spite of what's happening currently in our current climate, the efforts that I've seen to highlight, identify, magnify black owned brands, to me is shortening that gap. So while yes, there are some things in big box that we need to rectify and correct, I also can appreciate the shift and the attention and limelight being shown on other smaller brands as well.
Yeah. So how do you think, because another thing that you said, like underfunded, right?
Hmm.
Like the black brands aren't getting the capital, the VCs aren't, knocking down the doors of these beauty brands to fund them at a rate of other, ethnicities. And so it's always like, okay, you need to bootstrap, you need to,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is fine. We've been bootstrapping since the beginning of time. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I feel like when you look at the Mayels, the Watch and Sees, the Lip Bars, these brands that have been able to kind of break that ceiling and kind of go to the next level, right? They all have a similar story. We started in our kitchen, even R&R
Hmm.
skincare, we got a chance to connect with this Sunday. I think she said she started her brand with 500 something or whatever, because she's from
Hmm.
Africa, from Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. But
Hmm.
she said she started with the equivalent of $500, and now she has a
Hmm.
global brand, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
I think that story is so like prevalent in our community. Like every black brand, beauty brand that you hear, it's a similar story. We started in the kitchen. We started
Yeah.
because, we didn't see this in the marketplace. We knew that this was needed for women of color, and we couldn't find a brand that did it. Whereas, you see other ethnicities do crowdfunding rounds and raise 3-4 million in their first round with a prototype and
Hmm.
an ideal.
Yeah.
So the it's a big difference, right? But like I said, we've been bootstrapping since the beginning of time, so it's nothing new to us. But how do you think, just from a product development standpoint, how do you think small brands can get that, visibility and get in front of the people that they need to, that can make the decisions and ultimately like cut the checks for
Wow. That's That's a multi-layered question. I would say so. How do I think brands can get the visibility that they
Mm-hmm.
need in order to get the
Mm-hmm.
funding that they need?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so the first thing that I would always encourage is organic growth. So not so growing at the pace that your business commands, right? There's nothing wrong with being a kitchen chemist and solving a problem in your kitchen first. Doing that in a a safe way until that
Yes.
organically scales to a place where you need maybe you go from your kitchen to a shared space, and then maybe from the shared space you go to contract manufacturing, and then from contract manufacturing you invest in your own facilities, like we know R&R, we heard R&R has done in Ghana, or Mael even did as well. um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's it. Just don't get ahead of yourself in that way. I'm hearing a mix of different feedback about funding, and has that dried up for particularly Black women. Um, and how do we creatively find funding? So those are things that are being currently discussed and figured out. But also having someone to help you navigate this. So I see a question from Indo Nation. Indo says,
Okay.
my name is Indiana and I live in California. I have a patent pending for organic, non-toxic braiding hair made of hemp. Congratulations to you. This combo is great. Thank you. How can I find people for R&D? I think that's a great question, because the first thing you understand is that you don't want to wear all the hats, right? And you want to find a subject matter expert that can focus on that, so you're not spending time and money learning something that someone already knows. First, I mean, low hanging fruit. I am very accessible to help point you in the right direction. I believe I'm Akuba underscore T on Instagram and Akuba Torvikey on LinkedIn. So just look up my name's pretty pretty unique. And so I
Yes.
could help point you in the direction of, depending on your needs. In Indiana, you may need a product development professional, someone that can just guide and lead the overall process for you. But maybe it's just a packaging specialist, or maybe it's just fragrance. And so understanding where you are in your needs, I can point you in the right direction. But the Black Women Cosmetic Chemistry, another shameless plug, that is a wealth of formulators. Not the only professional you'll need in your journey, but definitely important to the journey. So, yeah, so not outpacing yourself in your growth. Let your growth fund, let your income fund your growth.
Yeah.
And then I would just a charge to everyone listening, like, no one's coming to save us. We are who we've been waiting on. We have to support each other, not just buying on the shelf, but maybe it's their crowdfunding, and maybe it is, sending out or forwarding something. And so we're going to have to amp up our support of each other. We're going to make it out of this season that we're in. It's a couple more questions. You mind if
Yeah.
I pick those up? Okay, so
Okay. Yeah. Go
um,
ahead.
hi, me. My name is Mia. I graduated in chemical engineering and love cosmetic chemistry. Want to ask, what advice would you give to your younger self starting out in this industry? Um, Great question. I would actually start with with what Sakeya mentioned as far as networking laterally. Your peers are very important, and I honestly I wouldn't be here where I am, sitting where I am today, without peers who, I pull you up, then you pull me up, and we've pulled each other up. And you look around, and everyone has achieved the level of success that they define for themselves. So your peers are going to be very important to your journey. Find a good mentor, but not just find a mentor. I had to make people my mentors, right? So, I
So you out here Debo and you out here Debo and mentor.
I did. I made Robin Groover and my Ivana. I made her my mentor. I made Tony Adair. He formulated before we worked together. I've made so many people my mentor. So I would say that don't just wait for it to happen. Just go in and ask. And, maybe it's not an ongoing, but maybe it's a 30-minute conversation. So, um, find mate mentors, and networking laterally. Anything else?
Yeah.
Agile,
For
agility, is the last thing I would
yeah.
say. Is don't, unless you're just head over heels in love with a specific category, sw- switch it up. Get experience in hair and
Yeah.
skin and body, so you're not pigeonholing yourself. um
Yeah.
and that's
So
it.
hold
That's
on, let me jump in there for that one. So for
okay.
that, something that I would tell my younger self is like, you're with me, right? And where I am now and what I'm doing now is like, give yourself grace for whatever phase and stage you are in your journey, right? Because where I am now, I've never been here before, right? On my way to try to get somewhere else. And so I can't hold myself to such these high standards that like I should have it all figured out. I should know what I'm doing because I'm embarking on something that I have no idea about. And then another one I would say, just do the work. Just focus on doing the work and the fruit will speak. People want to, get on the mountaintop and scream from the top of their lungs about what they're doing. You just do the work and the opportunities are going to come. The people that are supposed to be in your path will come in your path. People that want to see you win will help you win. You have to understand that. And when you're doing the work and you results driven, everything is gonna work out for you. So that's what I would tell my younger self. Because it's like, when you young, you be like, where it's at? It ain't here. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
coming. What am I doing wrong? And it's just like, no, you gotta let it cook. You
Yeah.
gotta let it cook.
Yeah.
So
uh
okay, we'll
you
take one more before we head on and then we'll come back.
you inspired one thought, though. My no's led me to a yes as well. So if I tried it and it was a no, all those no's led me to my yes in product development. So don't discount the no's that you get to.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take one more and then we'll move on and then we'll come back.
Okay. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and as an early career professional, what advice would you give about the feeling of otherness in a culture, and how to show up when it feels like I must either overperform or conform? that
Let
one's
me
that
take
one's
this one.
okay. Go ahead. You can start with that.
Let me take this one.
Okay.
Let me cook. Let me do my thing. Okay. So my background is in marketing. I got my degree in marketing from Clark Atlanta. And then I decided I wanted to be a fashion stylist. So I went to FIT in New York, the Fashion Institute of Technology. So for the last 20 years, that's what I've been doing, working as a fashion stylist. And I kind of dabbled in the beauty industry because naturally in the work that I do, I'm working with makeup artists, I'm working with hairstylists. But when I came into the STEM space, it was very intimidating, I will say. And it's not too many things that I'm scared of. And it's not that I was scared, I just had imposter syndrome. And I did an interview in the she asked me, have I ever experienced imposter syndrome? And I'm like, no, I'm lit. I'm lit everywhere I go. Every room I walk in, I feel like I'm supposed to be in there, right? But then I
Hmm.
started thinking about it and I was like, yeah, there is a sense of imposter syndrome, right? Because everyone that I'm around is a PhD this, a doctor in that, of, former CIA operative, all of the things. And it's like, I'm just the fashion girl, right? But one thing I will say is that once I leaned into who I was and what my strengths were, you got to understand that's enough, right? Like, I don't have to be a PhD. I just need to align myself with the people who know what they're doing and what they're talking about. And then they can focus on what they focus on and I can focus on what I focus on. And when you lean into who you are and you're authentically who you are, like you're going to find your tribe. You're going to find the people that are going to help you, that are going to nurture you, that are going to pull you up, that are going to encourage you, that are going to be willing to collaborate with you. And, you just have to understand that you are enough. And I'm speaking from experience. Like, that's something that I'm going through now currently, or not that I'm going through, I'm getting on the other side. But that's been
Sure.
a fight of mine for the past 3 or 4 years since I've been, in this space. So it's not about conforming. It's really just about leaning into who you are and understanding that that's enough.
Yeah. I think they call it qualifying the call and not calling the qualified. So you just have to be
Many are called, but the
into
chosen are few, honey.
exactly. So just being tuned in.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, for sure. You want to add anything to that, or we can move on with some more
No, we can
questions? Well, I
yeah,
have
we
some
can
more
move forward.
questions for you, and then we'll answer.
Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. What role does consumer insight and testing play in creating best-selling beauty products? And how do you ensure these insights are inclusive and reflective of a diverse consumer?
Who? Okay. Give me the first half of it one more time.
Okay. What role does consumer insight and testing
Okay.
play in creating best-selling beauty products?
Okay. So, insights is so there's a dance. There's a dance between um data and insights. So, um insights is everything, whether it's data driven or it's inherent, it's something internal, your intuition, what it's telling you. So you can gain insights from a number of different sources. Data gives you direction, but intuition tells you when and how to build to break the rules. So that's what intuition and uh, gives you. um okay, the second part of your
Okay.
question is
How do you ensure that these insights are inclusive and reflective of a diverse consumer?
okay. So, the way to do that is to make sure you're listening. So you're listening to market trends, consumer pain points, you're observing usage behavior, um, and once you have identified the problem and identified what you believe the solution is, to that problem, once you're going with your product, whether it's goop or whether it's an appliance or a hard good or accessory, testing, that's going to be testing with professionals, that's going to be testing with consumers, focus groups and things of that nature. You want to make sure that you're validating your concepts, validating your claims, testing your formula, and also validating your messaging as well. So it's just this continuous feedback loop of information, and obviously, the scale of that, and the size of that varies depending on the size of your company. But I would say, even if you're a small brand, you can start tomorrow by identifying brand enthusiasts and high spenders that you can use to bid out your own database of volunteers when you're ready to test your products and test your concepts with.
Yeah. And I'll speak to that as well. With the launch of my product, Fly Girl Approved hair perfume. So my hair fragrance came about because of my STEM program. Like, I've always been a fragrance girl, but from a consumer side. Like, I just like to buy perfume and spray it, right? But
Mhm.
then once I started my STEM program, and we focused on fragrances, and I was working with brands like Creed and Joe Malone, and I got to
Mhm.
see formulations of fragrances from a different lens, right? And so that led me to that led me to develop the hair perfume. But when I thought about the hair perfume, I'm thinking about women, right? And so our
Mm-hmm.
first scent that we launched was very fruity, very fresh, formulation. And then guys started asking, like, can I spray this in my beard? Can I spray this on my dreads and things like that? So
Mm-hmm.
that goes back to what you were saying. Like, the market determined what my next drop would be, because I had never considered men. I never considered men's beards. I never considered their dreads. I was solely focused on women. But I was
Mm-hmm.
getting so much feedback from men asking about the product. I'm like, okay, there's a need for this. So if I create a unisex scent, which was my second drop, I could now bring in a different demographic that I didn't think about
Yeah.
in the beginning. And so I think that's important. Like you said, answering another question, try different things so that you're not handcuffed to one thing. Like, I'm only doing skincare. Like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And it's like dibble and dabble in other things. And then you'll figure out, you might not know what you want to do, but at least you'll know what you don't want to do. And I think that's
Yeah.
almost as important as knowing what you do want to do. So
Absolutely.
yeah, the
So,
market definitely will dictate and tell you where to go.
right. You what
We
you
have
shared.
another. We can take another question in between this.
Okay.
Hmm?
Just a thought real quick and just something that you shared. Um on the formulation
Hmm.
side, what is one thing about being a product developer is the need to be nimble. So you may go into your testing with an idea of what you think the product is going to do or how you think it's going to perform, and you may come out of it with a totally different use case of that. And a really good example of that that I can recall was Pattern's Deep Scalp Detox. We went into testing with one intended use, but we figured out more use cases for the formula by the end of salon testing. So that finished product is a good example of how we blended the data with creative intuition. And so I hear you applied that to
Yeah.
your product as well. So uh you already got it. It's inherent to you, girl. So let's see.
Girl,
Kiva,
I'm a little bit of everything, girl. I'm a little bit of everything.
and you
You
brought
got
up a
another
great
question?
point about your we do with Kiva. You brought up a great point about your background in fashion
Okay.
and things of that nature. Diversity of thought is really important when it comes to being a developer. So Kiva, she has heard about a program with cosmetic chemistry and L'Oreal, and then she is a cosmetologist with over 16 years of experience in Denver. I've not heard of the L'Oreal program. I'm familiar with Olay and some other. It's a few, and I wouldn't necessarily say they're specific to product development, just make beauty and in certain aspects of product development. But the more the merrier. I would say definitely pursue that if you're looking to pivot, but don't stop there. The Olay one is skin focused, and there are other focus as well. So to be a developer, having a wealth of knowledge is definitely to your benefit. Spicer asks, what
Yeah.
advice can you provide for a hairstylist with a background in design and technology who's never worked on the corporate side of beauty, working to pivot into a role at a beauty brand? So Spicer, you have a very particular set of skills, which is really dope. So design, technology, and hairstylist. Let's see, what advice you're going to I think you are going to find more success creating your own lane, figuring out, I didn't know I was doing product development until I said, hey, I do this and this. What did they call this? And there was a name for it, and maybe there is a name for what you can do, and maybe it's not, and you create that. But um I mean, you can go anywhere from I'm not sure what type of design, but you could do anything from package design to creative directing to
That's what I
uh,
was thinking.
wealth of things. Let's see. So network, go to beauty industry events, and not necessarily just as far as your peers. I would say go to industry events where Cosmoprof is a great one to go to. Lux Pack is
Yeah.
packaging focused, and New York's Society of Cosmetic Chemists Suppliers Day is coming up at the top of June. So get your feet wet.
Suppliers Day. Yeah.
Suppliers
I'm going to
Day.
be attending that. Are you going? Are you going
Um,
to
I'm
Suppliers Day?
I'm a maybe. I'm still trying to figure out if I'm gonna go up or not. I'll
Okay.
let you know though for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go. This will be my first.
Okay.
This will be my first one.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah. So
I
I'm
did. I
excited, and
attended.
that's a thing.
Oh, go ahead. I think we have a delay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay. No, I was saying that's great information. Just being around other professionals, right? Like I always say, don't 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 do the job. How's the saying? Like, go to where you want to be, right? Like, if you want to be in this space, go to the places where people are actively in this space, right? Because like you said, like Akuba said, you're doing all these things and you don't even know how to brand yourself. You don't even know what to call yourself. You're just a person doing all these things. But when you're in environments with people that are actually in this space, they can lend you insight like, oh, you do this, this, and this. That's called the yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's what happened to me when I was working at the studio in college. Someone told me, Sakeya, you should be a fashion stylist. I didn't know what a fashion stylist was. I was like, well, what's that? And they was like, oh, you work with artists, you dress them for music videos and stuff. And I'm like, for real? And they gonna pay me? And they was like, yeah. And boom, that's how I became a fashion stylist. It was just like that. I didn't know what it was. I just was a fashionable girl. I was a talker. I'm bubbly. I'm into music. And then it's like, well, what do you call me? Boom, you're a fashion stylist. And 20 years later, I'm telling you, that's exactly how it happened. And so, and even when I was coming up, like in the fashion space, I used to always go to the magic shows. I used to always go to the magic shows in Las Vegas because I just wanted to soak up the energy, right? I wanted to see the people that I said I wanted to be in this space. I would go to Fashion Week, even if I wasn't getting invited to the shows, just being in New York during that time, walking past the stores, seeing the people on the streets, like immersing myself in the industry that I said I wanted to be in. And I was able to talk to people and meet people and build relationships and build community before I even knew what that was. So yeah, I would definitely say, put yourself in spaces where the people that are supposed to find you can find you. And I have a story real quick before we wrap it up. I have been trying to connect with Candace from My Ivana for probably about 8 months before we actually met. And we actually met in New York at the Fashion Bomb Daily Fashion Show. I was there this past year, last year actually. And I was there. Vivica Fox was hosting the show and she invited me to the show. And My Ivana and Candace was one of the sponsors for the show. So when I saw her, I was like, there she go. And I went over to her. She was at the booth and I went over to her. I told her I had my 30-second elevator pitch ready for her. I told her about the program. I told her about the stuff I was doing in Spelman. And she was like, yeah, I had seen your emails. I'm like, listen, no pressure. I mean, you were in a multi-million-dollar tech company. I get it. You can't respond to every email. I get it. But we made that connection. I told her I was doing an event at Spelman on National STEM Day, and I would love for her to be on the panel. And she came and sat on the panel. And then that turned into, her sitting on the panel at Georgia Tech and me moderating that. And now it turned into My Ivana hosting the Science of Beauty Unlocked series. So I'm saying all that to say, like, I was there, had I not been at that fashion show, I would have never got that moment with her, that 30 seconds, that 2 minutes with her, that has grown to this. Even the event that I talked about Sunday, Akuba, I was supposed to leave Atlanta on Saturday. I was only supposed to be there from Thursday to Saturday. And then when I found out that that event was going on, I extended my trip because it was a few people there that I had been trying to connect with. And so I got the opportunity to connect with them personally and talk to them and put a face behind the email and a face behind the name. And those things are important, right? Because people feed off of energy. And so that's one of the most important things I can say. Like, I'm gonna pull up. If it's somewhere that I need to be and there's a situation or opportunity where I can put myself in front of the people that are making the decisions or the people that can help me move my agenda along, I'm gonna get there. And so that's one thing that I can implore you guys to do. Like, really just put yourself out there and get in front of as many people as you can. So that's that. So we got one more question. Let me ask you this one, and then we'll take some more questions and wrap it up. Cause girl, that hour went fast. Girl, it's been an hour.
So I know it went by really fast. So you want to take some questions over in
well, I have one more to ask you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay. For young women who want to follow in your footsteps, whether as chemists, product developers, or founders, what's one piece of advice you wish you had earlier in your career? So I guess we can kind of wrap that up in some of the last questions, because I think we kind of touched on that already. But
yeah, we did. The networking, I can add two more pieces on how. So in person always matters. So I would start by just identifying all of the industry relevant events. There's makeup in LA, makeup in New York, Lux Pack. Start looking those up and seeing what else is out there. Create a calendar. See if you can go to those events. If you can go to those events, make sure you're meeting someone there who is local, that's in your industry as well. But also don't forget about the power of online, and that scales, right? So during the pandemic, I used to call it Zoom into beauty. I would ask professionals for 30 minutes of their time just to talk to them. So I didn't let the pandemic get in the way of networking. So just ask for people's time. Don't be intimidated by the title that you see. Most of the time, if they look like you in one way or another, as a black woman or person, etc., they will lovingly and willingly give you what they have as far as information and advice, and if not, point you in the right direction.
Yes. Listen, my claim to fame is LinkedIn. Get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your friend. Like, the amount of relationships and connections and opportunities that I have got. Baby, I need to be an advocate for LinkedIn. I swear to God, I do. Because I'm telling everyone, when people start hitting me up, yes, was on LinkedIn. Listen, when people call me like, Sakeya, I need to, first thing I ask them, are you on LinkedIn? Because you should be on LinkedIn. Exactly. So, build, like Akuba said, build your online presence. Don't be afraid to ask people. One thing that I've learned through this journey, successful people want to help other people. That's what you got to understand. Because at one point, the GOAT was the rookie. You got to understand that we all started at ground zero somewhere. And so, take the time out, allot yourself 30 minutes a day to just send DMs to people on LinkedIn. If you send out 10, you might get 3 back, right? And then you just keep, it's just the numbers game, And so I really implore, like I said, in person is better. That's a great thing that Akuba said. Build a social calendar for the year. Most of these events happen semi-annually. They happen twice a year. They happen in different cities. They're in Vegas, they're in Miami, they're in New York, they're in LA. So if you have a calendar, it's something that you can kind of look forward to and plan, and do your research and do your due diligence. And when you're going to these, events, have a game plan. When any room that I go into and I have the opportunity to look at the speakers and look at the panels, the first thing I do is I go to find them on LinkedIn and I friend them and I tell, hey, I can't wait for this event. I'm so excited about meeting you at this event. And then the first thing they're going to do is go look at my page and then see all the things that I'm doing. So when we meet each other in person, there's already that that familiarity. So it's you just can't be scared. That's just the bottom line. You can't be scared. We're at a time and we're in a climate right now where the only way that we're going to thrive and survive is through collaboration and community. So
Spot.
I really feel that. Do we have any more questions, AK, before we wrap this up?
How do you, Yaya wants to know, as a young professional starting exactly at 20 years old, how do you demand respect as a woman in STEM? Um, my experience hasn't been, I would say, the experience I've heard of others as women in STEM or as Black women in STEM. I've tend to found myself in places and spaces where we took up space. Most of the people I work with look like me, etc. What I have been guided and instructed to do is a take up space and be loud, like in terms of not necessarily just in the room, but speaking out, up and out, against injustices and things that you see. I've seen women shrink in rooms when men come in those rooms. We have to get away from doing that. I've seen, a transition into what beauty was, in some certain areas and spaces, male dominated, right? And so now you're seeing more women in the room talking about things that affect women. Don't forget that we are our own secret weapon, or you're your own secret weapon in the room, and just don't ever forget that.
Yeah. For me, I would say, results breed respect, right? Like you could feel how you want to feel about me. The results are the results, and numbers don't lie. And I feel like, once you do the work and you get the results, the respect will come. Always remember first that you're a lady, always remember that. And just understanding that being authentically yourself is your superpower, and don't shy away from that. But the biggest thing I can say is that results breed respect. So
Agree.
okay, AK, we over time.
All right,
We
this
over
was a
time,
really
sis.
great
So
conversation. Go ahead.
So we're gonna wrap this up. So Akuba, let everyone know how they can contact you, stay in touch with you, drop your handles, all of the things.
Sure. I am on LinkedIn at Akuba Torvikey. You can find me on social media platforms, Akuba underscore T. And those are the best places to reach me. I'm very responsive. So if you have questions about career or the businesses you want to start or just anything, I'm happy to. I'm a resource and an ear to listen, and hopefully can point you in the right direction, and hopefully convince some of you all to come over and join us in product development. So thanks for tuning in, and take care. Thank you, Sakeya.
Yes. Thank you, AK. So you can find me at LinkedIn, Sakeya Donaldson. On Instagram, I'm Sakeya Da Great, Sakeya Da Great. And then you can also follow us at thescienceofbeauty.hq. So again, we're getting ready to embark on our HBCU Science of Beauty Summer Tour. I'm so excited. Our first stop is at Spelman College. We'll be there June 16th through the 20th. Then we'll be at Xavier in New Orleans June 30th through July 3rd. And then we'll be at North Carolina A&T July 14th through 18th. And registration is still open. You can find out more information at www.thescienceofbeauty.net. We want to thank our lovely host, Maya Vanna, for hosting us today. And thank you guys so much for tuning in to Unlock the Science of Beauty. Have a great day.
Peace. Okay. How do you know? Oh, it still says live.
It should go off. Okay, well, let's log off. Go to
Okay.
Leave Studio.